boxlib.org, click on events, and then click on recorded tech talks. Just be aware it takes up to a week for the talks to be available for viewing after the session. New this time for today is that we're piloting using the Zoom chat feature. So if you have questions for the second half of today's talk, you can add your questions directly to the Zoom chat, or as in the past, you can email techtalks@boxlib.org. If you're here live, we'll come around and get your questions at halfway point. Regarding the Zoom chat feature, if you would do us a favor and try to keep all chat relevant to the topic at hand, that just helps our staff find the questions easily and catalog them. And also make sure you are treating others with respect, or you might be removed from today's meeting. Check the top post in the Zoom chat for more information on that. Our meeting subjects, today we're talking about what to look for in a new device. Our meeting subjects are chosen quarterly. We send out a survey by email with topics, and then you have a chance to write in any topics that you'd like us to address. Your top three choices, then we create talks surrounding that piece of technology, and then registration through Zoom allows you to ask a specific question for us to be able to address it during the talk. Next month's subject, answering your iPhone and iPad questions, is built entirely around audience input. So we need your questions. Please email techtalks@boxlib.org so we can build a list of topics based on your needs. And as I said earlier, today's discussion is what to look for when buying new devices. We did open this up to your questions as you registered. So we have some questions during the first half that we'll address directly, as well as speaking more generally about information that you should think about when you're in the market for a new phone, laptop, or tablet. All right, so let's get started, everybody. The first thing we want to talk about before we even address specific devices is what you should be thinking about when you are in the market for a new device. And that is, how are you going to use that device? How are you going to use that laptop, that tablet? Are you using it for things like everyday use, email, web browsing, social media? If you're just streaming some video from YouTube or Netflix, or if you're using it for video chat features, those tasks are not very taxing on a device. And so you can go for something a little more basic than if you're using it for some heavy duty use. So if you're thinking that you are going to get into video gaming, or you have a sudden urge to take up video editing as a hobby, you're going to want a device that has a little more power behind it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get to specific devices. But these are two things you want to consider in what we call your use case, how you're using your devices. You also want to think about what kind of form factor that you want in a device. So it used to be pretty clear, if you were in the market for something, what you were looking for. A laptop, is generally more powerful than a tablet and can be used for a lot more things. But a tablet's a little more portable. You can take it with you anywhere. There are devices called 2-in-1s, which are convertible. You can either pop the screen off and use it as a tablet, or they fold up and turn into tablets. And then for everything else, when you're thinking about non-computing devices, printers, routers, that sort of thing, again, just ask some questions. Think about how you're using them. And finally, the one that we all have to deal with and which we didn't have to is what's in your budget. This is often a trade-off when you are considering what to buy. Inexpensive devices are, they're pretty awesome because you're not breaking your bank, but often those inexpensive devices are less powerful. They will get overtaxed when you're trying to do something like video editing. An expensive device usually comes with more power, and often those expensive devices you can trust are going to last a little bit longer too. So you'll be purchasing them for a longer lifespan. You can save some money and know that what you're getting is maybe a little lower on the budget line, or you can break your bank and get something that's going to last you longer. All right, so let's talk about some specific devices as we go through our discussion today. We're going to start with a majority of our questions that came in ahead of time were questions about those workhorse devices that we rely on. So phones, tablets, laptops that we use daily. We had a question that came through. I'm a 61-year-old woman and I'm looking for a device that is smaller than a laptop. I would like something that I can travel with, that's easy to use for everyday issues. So this sort of depends on what everyday issues are for you. As we just said, you have a couple things to consider here. In this case, I'm going to consider everyday issues, those everyday use cases that we started with. So email, social media, normal web browsing, document creation, looking at PDFs, that sort of thing. You are looking for a device that is, probably not gonna break the bank because you are looking for something that is, not as powerful as what you might need if you were looking for like a gaming laptop or something. So let's talk about mini laptops. And I know that the question asker asks specifically about something other than laptops, but there are laptop form factors that are very portable. So a pretty standard laptop these days starts at about 13 inches, but you can get things that are smaller than that, 10 or 11-inch laptops that you can carry around with you. They tend to be less powerful, and sometimes, like in the case of a Chromebook, they are very limited to just web-only apps in like browsing the web, Chrome, using Google Chrome, YouTube, that sort of thing. Chromebooks are generally pretty inexpensive. You can get a pretty good one for like $300. You can go as low as like $150. But if you are looking for something that is a little more robust, you can still get small form factor laptops. Now, I did list the MacBook Air here. It starts at 13 inches, so it is a larger size laptop, but it is very light. And it is pretty expensive. It starts about $900, and depending on what you get as far as the specs go, it can get up to, up near $2,000. Or alternately, you can go for a Windows laptop from one of the reputable manufacturers, Lenovo, Dell, Acer. They can get pretty small, 10 or 11 inches. And you can do a little bit of research and see what might fit your budget there. Okay, so that's it for the mini laptops. Let's talk more about, there's our 2-in-1s that I mentioned earlier. Right, the next category of devices that I want to talk about are those 2-in-1 devices. These are a combination laptop tablet form factor. So in this case, you can see this device has hinges that let you fold the screen back, and then you'd be able to hold it as a tablet or bring it forward and you can type on it as a laptop just as you would any other laptop. There are also 2-in-1 form factors, as I said earlier, that let you detach the screen completely from the bottom unit, or that come with completely separate keyboards that combine to make it fit the laptop form factor, but also still be able to carry it around as if it was a tablet. Some great devices in this category are the Microsoft Surfaces. The Surface Go is a pretty small form factor that you can get for around $400. The Surface Pro 9 is a bigger and more robust 2-in-1, and that goes for about $900. Lenovo is another PC manufacturer that makes a Yoga brand or line of 2-in-1 devices. There's a couple different devices in that line, and again, they combine this tablet laptop concept. And the price range on that is about as wide as the Surface was. And then there are Chromebook 2-in-1s. The same caveats apply to the Chromebook 2-in-1s as apply to the Chromebooks in laptop form factors, where they're a little more limited in what they can do. You're locked into just the Chrome operating system. But if you are using it just for document creation, just for web browsing, some social media stuff, they can certainly fit your needs. And then we have tablets. If you had asked me about 5 or 6 years ago if I thought a tablet, if I could get by in my everyday life with a tablet, I would have said no, that I need a laptop for what I do. And part of that is just growing up using computers more than tablets. But also, a tablet these days is coming closer and closer to fulfilling all the things that a laptop can do in a very similar way. You really only have two categories of tablets as far as I know these days. There are iPads manufactured by Apple. Everybody's seen one, and there's a whole bunch of different form factors there. You've got minis all the way up to the Pros, which are pretty large. And then you have Android tablets. The two big names in Android tablets are the Samsung Galaxy Tab and the Amazon Fire, but there's lots of different manufacturers for Android tablets also. So you can do a little bit of research there. Again, you have to think about what size you want, if you want it to be very portable, or if it's, better to have a larger size so you can do some video streaming and not have to squint at the screen. If you think you're going to be doing some video editing on it, in which case you want a more powerful tablet. All right, so that is an answer to our first question. Our second question actually carries on a little bit from that first question. Somebody asked, I have several apps that I use for communication with my students. The apps are 1 or 2 gigabytes each, and I also take tons of pics and videos to use with the apps. I would love advice on iPad models for these purposes and for video editing. So this patron is asking specifically about iPads. iPads come, as I said, in a bunch of different form factors. Not listed on my screen here are iPad minis, which get closer to like an e-reader size and are much more portable, but do sacrifice a little bit in terms of their internals, what size or what the processor has, all that sort of thing. For this person's use case, I would say, depending on how much video editing they're going to do, I'd probably go with the 10th generation iPad. And then just make sure when you're buying it that you are buying enough storage inside the iPad. They'll come in different hard drive sizes. I think the base model is 512 these days, but don't quote me on that, but it'll go all the way up to a terabyte. And, if you think you're going to be doing a lot of video capture, you want a large hard drive inside your devices. If you are going to, if you want to splurge, the iPad Pro has a very beautifully upgraded screen that is very vibrant, and its internals are really powerful in a way that rivals a lot of Apple's own laptops these days. So you can sort of know that you are buying something that's going to last you quite a while. And then you can get an Apple Pencil and sync it with your iPad and do all kinds of drawing and fun stuff like that. All right. Okay, so we're going to switch off from laptops and tablets and talk a little bit about mobile phones. Our patron had a specific question about the best Android mobile phone with long life for its battery. I want to take a step back before I answer this question specifically and talk a little bit about phones in general. We live and die by our cell phones these days. We carry our lives around in our pockets. It's how we keep touch with people. We catalog our lives with our cameras that are built into it. And so you want to think a little bit when you're going to purchase a new phone, again, what you're using your phone for, what kinds of things you really use it for. For instance, I have a couple of dogs and a couple of kids, and I take a lot of pictures. And when I was buying my last phone, I wanted to make sure I got a phone with a camera that was going to capture the best pictures that I could. And I do also stream a fair amount on my phone while I'm washing dishes and that sort of thing. I watch soccer matches and I watch Netflix. So I wanted to make sure that it had a pretty decent battery life too. Ask yourself these questions, do a little bit of research, think about things that you do on your phones before you upgrade. In the case of this patron, very specifically, Android phones, we did a little research when we were prepping, and there's lots of lists out there, and you can feel free to Google, Android phones best battery life, because this is one category where there are lots of new phones coming out for Android device or Android makers all the time. What we did find on several lists that crossed over with each other were the OnePlus 12. That's the phone at the bottom on the left there. And then the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra is a new device or a new phone that is listed as having a long battery life. If you need a budget option for Samsung Galaxy devices, the A15 also is listed as having a long battery life too. All right. I hope if you have questions on those, you'll put them in chat or email techtalks@buckslib.org so we can address them in the second half. We're going to shift gears now into another category of questions. Unsurprisingly, we got a lot of questions about how to buy a device, a tablet or an e-reader that's going to integrate with services that the library offers. We have quite a few services that you can use for free with your library cards, your library accounts, like Cloud Library and Hoopla and other devices. So our first question here that specifically asks, what devices would be best for accessing electronic books and audiobooks from Libby, Cloud Library, and Hoopla, which might also provide access to ebooks and audiobooks stores? In this case, the patron is asking about how they can best use our library services that are free, but also if they have a device, how they can buy ebooks and audiobooks from the stores that are integrated into the device. So we're going to go sort of platform by platform here, actually. I'm going to start with Cloud Library, which is an ebook and audiobook platform that is provided to all county library card holders. You can download ebooks and audiobooks either in an app or on your computer. And it also integrates with Cloud Library Newsstand, which you can use magazines, and it has a comics offering also. In this case, Cloud Library, the best device that you will find that works directly with Cloud Library is actually a tablet, either an Android tablet or an iPad, because you download the Cloud Library app directly from the App Store, and then you do all of the work, all of the downloading and browsing and all that stuff inside the app itself. If you are looking for, if a tablet is out of the order or out of the question, if you're not looking for something that expensive and you wanted specifically something like an e-ink e-reader, like a Kindle or something like that, you can look at the Kobo or the Nook. Cloud Library does not currently work with the Amazon Kindle devices, the e-reader devices specifically. And if you are looking for an e-reader device, know that the steps to get your borrowed books onto the Kobo or the Nook actually involve downloading it to your computer, hooking your e-reader up to your computer, transferring it over to the e-reader. There are a lot of steps that make it sort of a little less fluid than having it on the tablet and working right in the device. Any of our librarians can help you with those steps, those procedures. But there are actually tablets that are e-ink tablets that will have a screen just like a Kindle Paperwhite or a Kobo, but function like an Android tablet. In this case, Books is a brand that has a full-fledged Google Play app store where you can download the Cloud Library app, do all of your browsing and downloading inside that app, but you still get the very crisp screen that you get reading on an e-ink e-reader. And they're pretty cool devices too. All right. let's talk about Hoopla. Hoopla is another service that you can download audiobooks, ebooks, TV shows, movies, songs for free from the service. You can find it at our website, buckslib.org. For Hoopla, you're going to want a smart device like a tablet, a phone, or a computer. It doesn't currently integrate with any e-readers. And you do all of the downloading, all of the browsing within the Hoopla app on your smart device. I find it easiest to do it on my phone because I listen to a ton of audiobooks, and it just checks out directly to the Hoopla app. The experience is it's pretty fluid on your phone, but it'll work on a tablet as well. And you can download them directly to a computer if you don't have access to smart devices. The question did ask directly about Libby. Now, Libby is a service that that BCFL does not provide currently, but you can get library cards from the Free Library of Philadelphia and the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh for free as a Pennsylvania resident. You can apply to their websites online. You have access to their Libby collections. There are a few libraries in Bucks County that also joined together and purchased access. So you can ask questions about that at of any of our reference librarians. But regarding Libby, again, using a tablet like an iPad, like a Android tablet, directly is one of the easiest ways to do it. It also works on your smartphone. You can check out ebooks and audiobooks directly. Libby does integrate within Akobo at the Akobo e-reader on the Kobo itself, as long as you're just using one library card. You don't even have to, do anything outside of the e-reader. You can browse the collection and check out directly on the Kobo. Again, it's only for one library card. So if you have multiple library cards you're managing in your Libby app, then know that you have to go to the computer or to a tablet to make that work. You can also use Libby with Kindles, like the very popular Paperwhite. It syncs to your Amazon account, so you have to check it out on the computer. It'll click you over to your Amazon account where you sync it, and then it'll download to your Kindle automatically and sync that way. All right, so those are the library services that integrate directly with those devices. Again, when you're thinking about which ones to buy, it's never a bad idea to get your hands on them either. So if you can get out to a big box store and test it out a little bit, get the feel for how it fits into your hand, that's always great. And then our last big category of questions that came in were about printers. Everybody's got questions about printers. And I want to start by saying the question you want to ask yourself about printers and your use case with printers is, do you really need a printer in the year 2024? We have devices that we carry around everywhere with us on which we can read our documents and our PDFs. And you can pay for printing at lots of different places, including at the library, which I'm going to demonstrate in just a second. You can, unless you're running a business out of your home office, chances are pretty good with just a little bit of planning and preparation, you can send your document to the library or to, another pay-for printing service, and then you save yourself the hassle of having to work with what, in my opinion, is the most evil of all devices, printers. All right. So first thing I'm going to do, actually, is I'm going to show you our mobile print service. So let's pull up the screen here. If you go to our website at buckslib.org and go to our services and click on the technology link, our copiers and printers, you get all the information about printing, how much it costs, et cetera, but you can also click on this print from home link, which will take you to this page. And then you can send your print jobs to any of the libraries that are listed in our drop-down menus here. Today, we're going to print to the Doylestown Library. Click on the button that says connect to upload your file. I am going to click the very large button that says click here to select a file and upload. Here's the script for today's session, everyone. I'm going to upload this by clicking open. And then I get a couple choices here. Black and white or color printing, how many copies I want. I can fiddle with the settings so that I can print on both sides or just choose a specific page range. I'm going to go with the defaults here. And then if everything looks good, you can see that it gives me the cost. I'll accept the terms and conditions, click continue, give it my email address. And voila. All I have to do at this point is drive to the library, go to the kiosk and enter my email address, and then the print job will be there waiting for me. Simple as that, which is why you'll hear me again and again in the next couple questions reiterate that if you can avoid having to buy a printer, I would do so. All right, so our first question regarding printers is, I'm old and on a fixed income, and I'm trying to decide whether I should go with an inkjet rather than a LaserJet for my next printer. Inkjets seem to be less expensive, but I print infrequently, and I worry about the ink drying out and clogging my printer, which would not be an issue with a laser. Are inkjets feasible if I only print a couple of times a year? So this is a really great question with a really simple answer. If you're only printing a couple of times per year, I would not buy an inkjet printer. There are definitely steps you can take if you know that you're going to be mindful about your printers that will help the ink to not dry out, to last longer, including taking them out and putting them in a Ziploc bag until the next time you need to use them. But if you're like me and very forgetful and know that you're not going to remember to do that after every time that you print, they are going to dry out. You're going to pay tons of money in ink costs. And as they dry out, they do run the risk of clogging your printer and causing damage to the printer, which just costs more money in the long run to repair. You don't run that risk with a LaserJet printer because they don't use ink. They actually use like a type of plastic that they fuse to the paper when they run through. So you don't run that risk. What you do run is that those printers are much more expensive. A LaserJet printer generally runs much more than an inkjet printer. And again, if you're only printing a few times per year, I will encourage you to really consider whether a printer is something you need in your house, taking up space, or if you can just bring it, send your print jobs to the library and swing by and pick them up during our open hours. All right. There's the answers to that. So if you do decide that you do want a printer in your house, if you must, I would stick with a Brother printer or an Epson printer. HP makes a lot of printers, and I have never had any kind of luck with an HP printer ever in my life. Even their like handy LaserJet models end up, with some kind of kink in them that I've had to call service technicians out for. So, but I'm gonna keep telling you, think about whether it's something you really want in your house. All right, next question. If you do have a LaserJet printer, printer toner is quite expensive, with non-OEM options costing significantly less than OEM toner. Can you speak to the pros and cons of putting a non-OEM toner cartridge in my printer and whether there is risk of significant damage or repair costs if doing so? Thanks. All right, so first off, OEM is original equipment manufacturer. That just means that if you bought a Brother printer, you're going to buy the Brother cartridges, the Brother branded cartridges. That is always the safest bet because you know that those cartridges were made by the specific manufacturer to fit those devices. They're meeting specifications that are not going to damage your printer, and you can sort of rest easy knowing that you've got that your cartridge isn't going to ruin your printer. But as the question asker said, they are often much more expensive than going with something that's generic. There are two other types of toner cartridges that we can talk about here. There are things called compatible cartridges, which are manufactured by other manufacturers, other companies, and that are designed to fit the model of printer that you have. Now, they often are much less expensive, so you get that benefit. What you do run the risk of is, quality control. You don't know specifically. Often it's hard to research these companies, especially if you're buying from a shopping site like Amazon. It's there's a flood of generic companies that are listing stuff, and it's hard to do your due diligence and read those reviews and be skeptical about them. You don't know if they're overfilling or underfilling the cartridges. You don't know if that significantly less cost is actually going to get you the same amount of prints as the OEM cartridge will. So you get some trade-offs there. I think it's rare, but you do run the risk of buying something that will damage your machine if it's made from a sort of shady company that is just looking to make a quick buck. That's a lesser risk, but it certainly exists. And then the last category of toner cartridges that we can talk about here are remanufactured cartridges. So almost every printer manufacturer has a program these days where you can send your depleted cartridges to them. They will take them apart, clean them, test them, reassemble and refill them, and then resell them. You're often not getting a huge discount on these, but they will cost a little bit less. What you are doing is you are being very green, and you're keeping those plastic cartridges out of landfills. You're you're reducing your waste. You are doing all that stuff. So these are all things to consider. I don't feel strongly one way or the other about any of these options. I've used all three of them. I do really like the idea that I am saving the environment very slightly by buying remanufactured cartridges, but you can do your own research there. All right, and then we have a couple of odds and ends here at the end. Before we take our break, one last question. So when you're in the market for a new device, you are often thinking about how to get rid of those old devices, right? How difficult is it to clear an old laptop of data and contents prior to disposing or trading it in? And the answer these days is actually pretty easy. Both Apple computers, the MacBooks, and Windows computers have built directly into the operating system now ways that you can factory reset the computer. So it completely wipes out your documents, your anything you have saved on that computer, and reinstalls the operating system. We can call this reimaging. It's a technical term. But if you have one of those devices, just go to Google, type in factory reset, the brand name of your computer, and there are step-by-step instructions on the Apple website, on the Windows, on Microsoft's website for any Windows computer. I'm sure that all the manufacturers have them specifically also. If you're really paranoid about your data, you can do these next couple steps. Like, you can open up your device and take out the hard drive, and then that way your hard drive doesn't go in with the device, so that the data that you've stored on your device is in your hands. You can do something like destroying the hard drive, or you can just stick it in, if you're me, stick it in a drawer and forget about it for 5 years. That way you know that the data that you've saved on that computer is still in your hands. And then there are programs that you can run that will wipe a computer completely. They're often designed for much more technically minded, IT professionals. So this last step is really for someone who is very, very paranoid about the type of information that they're storing on their computer, because you can, run Department of Defense standard wipes and erase every little bit on your hard drive, but it's overkill, and I don't recommend it unless you really, really need it. Okay, everybody, it's 2:36. I went over by 6 minutes for this first half here. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 2:40. Put your questions in the Zoom chat or email them to techtalks@buckslib.org, and we will be back to answer your questions. All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay, everybody, we're back. We have some questions cataloged here, so I'm gonna go through them one by one. We had an in-person question here in Doylestown. A couple asked, they have a computer that is fairly old at this point and is acting slow, but they mostly use it for email and internet browsing. And the question was, do they need another computer, or is another device going to suit? And I think the answer to that question depends on what you're comfortable with, unfortunately. For me, in that case, I do think another computer might be overkill. You can easily get away with, doing email, doing web browsing, playing some games, checking Facebook on a tablet, on an iPad, something like that. But if you're more comfortable with having a computer, I would look into something like maybe a not terribly expensive laptop, something like a Windows computer that you can carry around with you. Look at Dell's, look at what's another good brand? HP, yeah. Yep, Asus, and see. Asus, ASUS is another computer maker. But I said it once, and I don't think I emphasized it enough. One of the things that when you're in the market for a new device, and I sort of regret that this experience is disappearing from our world a little bit, but see if you can get out to a place and get your hands on the devices and feel them in your hands and try them out. Because, if you're going to be buying this thing and you're going to be working with it for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you want something that you're actually gonna use, that you're not gonna hate picking up and using. You can go to a Staples or Walmart, or do Best Buys exist still?
One by me.
Okay, so yes, Best Buy. Best Buy is a great place for something like that. Go out and just test them out and see what they feel like in your hands. All right. I did have one patron in the chat who made a great point, and I just wanted to go back and say I was harping on whether or not you actually needed a printer. I was not considering the fact that there are some people who have limited mobility. If you have an older person who can't get out of the house easily, or someone with physical disabilities, you might need a printer, in which case you can't strategically plan, like our patron says here, your way around having a printer in your house. In which case, do your research. I think I would always suggest that if it's in your budget, go with a LaserJet, especially if you don't need color printing. The black and white LaserJets are fairly affordable these days, but make sure that you are you're thinking about your use cases. But thank you for bringing that point up, because like I said, I did not consider that, and it is absolutely true. All right, we have a question. I have an HP printer and used InstaInk, which is a service when I had access to Wi-Fi printing, and now I don't have Wi-Fi printing. It uses a cord to plug into the HP, but it still wants me to connect into HP. I assume the HP service. I bypass that to print by hitting OK, but I can't scan a document because it wants you to sign in. Boy, I don't know the answer to that question specifically. That is unfortunately probably something for HP support. And I'm sorry that you have to go through them, but this might be something that you can try, emailing one of the librarians in the county to get some help with on questions, or like I said, I would try HP support again. And then she says, also, I use Cheap Ink from Amazon instead of HP ink, and it prints better than HP ink, which I don't doubt. I think my real concern about buying from Amazon, and maybe that's like the Amazon Basics branded, if they do that. Buying from Amazon, you just don't know who you're buying from. It's hard to vet the companies that you are looking at there. All right, so we had a couple more questions here. I need to buy a new laptop for personal use, as well as using it for a contract remote job. Do you have a recommendation? RE processing speed and memory size? No Apple. So no MacBooks. If it's just for office work, for email, for web browsing, most computer manufacturers are going to make something that's going to suit your needs here. I would say the minimum that you really want is 16 gigabytes of RAM for a computer these days. Anything lower than that, uh, most computers come with that as a baseline of, you know, what you're looking for these days. Anything lower than that, and you're going to start to run into some web speed problems using Google Chrome, that sort of thing. And then an i5 processor. Our computers don't tax our CPUs the way that they used to. But going any lower than that, you do start to run the risk, like an i3, you start to run the risk of underselling yourself. Microsoft Surface does make laptops, not just those 2-in-1 form factors. And they're really great devices. Dell, you know, makes millions and millions and millions of computers. There's lots of different types of laptops in their lines. You can find anything from really powerful down to very portable and a little more inexpensive. That's what we suggest. All right, so another question. Laptops with Ethernet. I assume laptops with Ethernet cables, not just Wi-Fi laptops. You are gonna have a harder and harder time these days finding laptops with built-in Ethernet cables. I'm demonstrating to the people that are live here, but you know what they look like. They're those blue or yellow or red cables that clip into your routers or directly into your laptop. Laptops are getting thinner and thinner, and those Ethernet ports are some of the bigger ports on a computer these days. So if you absolutely need one, you're going to have to buy a larger laptop, something like a 15-inch. You can look at like a gaming laptop because gamers often want to be plugged directly in. The lag, the communication is much less when you're plugged directly into your router. Alternately, you can get a laptop without one of those Ethernet ports and then buy yourself a dock that you keep on your desk that will plug into your laptop with like a USB-C cable. Docks often come directly with those Ethernet ports. I have one in my office here. I have one at home that I love. You can do lots of research. Dell also manufactures docks, but lots of different companies do. And then we have one more question here. Looking to replace my laptop. It's been a decade since I bought it. Back then, MS Word was a disk that loaded. Please explain how this new version works. Annual subscription? Yeah, so you know, when you're buying a new device, this is one of those use cases that you're thinking about, right? Like we all use our devices to create documents, to write letters, to make spreadsheets, to, you know, make presentations. And yeah, the model for this type of software is different in 2024 than it was in even like, I don't know, 2020, 2019. You used to be able to actually buy it, have it on your computer. It was a license that worked until it, you know, until they upgraded to the new version, and then they, you know, they wanted you to upgrade to the new version, you'd buy a license. Nowadays, yes, it's a subscription. You can pay monthly or yearly. It gets you access, it gets you rolling access to updates to this software. So you're never in danger of being out of date, but you do lose access to the software if you stop paying for it at that point. It's a subscription service. So if you're not paying the subscription, you lose access. There are free versions that you can access of Microsoft Word through a web browser. So, you know, you have to navigate to office.com and use their free versions. It's a little less robust than the desktop apps. There is a pretty great free alternative in Google Documents. Again, that's all done through the web app. Like, so you have to go to Google's website, you do it through your web browser, but it's a great competitor to Microsoft these days. In some cases, I actually prefer using Google Docs to using the Office products. It's just that the Office products are so baked into all of our offices these days. It's what we've been using forever and ever. Let's see, I have one more thing in chat here. All right. Nope, that's just a bunch of responses to our questions. All right. That's all of our questions that we have received, everyone. So I'm going to take a moment to remind you again that these Tech Talks happen on the third Wednesday, almost said third Thursday, third Wednesday of the month at 2 o'clock. They are live, so you can come to one of the library branches or tune in on Zoom. If you register for the Zoom link, you can send in your questions. And our next month's topic is answering your iPad and iPhone questions specifically. So if you are an iPad and iPhone user, please take a look at our website, buckslib.org. You can find links for this session there. Send us your questions. Otherwise, we got to make them up, and that's not nearly as helpful to you as it could be. So that is all for today. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for coming in person. If you came in person, we appreciate you, and we will see you soon.